Hey everyone! Welcome back to the PCS to Corporate America podcast, brought to you by Cameron Brooks. I'm Maddie Reese. I'm on the marketing team here. So for this episode, we have a really great conversation. Brock Dudley meets with two of our incredible alums from the November 2025 Career Conference, Cody Williams and Burgess. They're going to be talking about sushi. They'll talk about synthetic DNA. They will talk about how they made their transition, and they'll give some really helpful advice along the way. For those of you who might be new to the podcast, our mission is to educate junior military officers on their options outside of the military, prepare them to transition with confidence, and support our alumni as they grow into impactful business leaders. Above all, we aim to inspire veterans to transform their lives and careers.
Kicking it off here for the November 2025 conference, we had 31 JMOs at the conference conducting a total of 327 total interviews over 2 days. 10 and a half interviews was the average number of interviews per officer at the conference, which is really right in line with what we've been seeing this year. I think last conference it was around 10.3, so really a good number. Now that doesn't mean that everybody had 10 and a half interviews. I know that there were people at the conference who had 13 interviews. I know there were people at the conference who had 8 interviews. And so really the focus was on quality, as it always is, and we'll talk about that here shortly. I like this data point, and this is definitely a Cameron Brooks data point. We call it a pursuit rate. Say 68%, and a pursuit rate simply means this: on average, if I average 10 and a half interviews, officers were winning 7.2 times on average across entire 31 JMOs at the conference. So that means, batting average is right around 700, which is pretty good. Now there are people here who had perfect conferences and had more yeses than that, right? And so that really speaks to the quality of preparation that they all put in, and just to set the right mindset. The average number of days from post-conference to placement was 14.54 working days. So conference ends on a Tuesday night. We count only working days. And so that's really about 2.5 weeks is what you're looking at. So it moves quickly. I mentioned earlier, quality career conference. This conference really lined up well on that. Every single candidate was so well prepared. Everyone was pursued, and every single person at the conference received an offer. And so we like to see that. Another data point, 2.10 average number of offers, and a little over 25%, a quarter of the candidates of the conference received greater than 3 offers. So that's encouraging. And that means that companies are motivated to hire, and that also means that it's competitive, right? That companies really want you all, but that also means that they're out there wanting to make offers and get hires. And so 90% of the hiring groups made offers at the conference. We had CEOs, senior leaders, VPs, executives. There were multiple special programs at the conference which were created for Cameron Brooks JMOs for complex, experienced hire positions. And so really a lot of what Cameron Brooks does is, yes, we help junior military officers get ready for the conference, but in another side of the house, where I'd call the client side of our business, which is run by Chuck Alvarez, our CEO, they do a lot of work with the companies to help them really recruit talent. And so it takes a lot of work there. But my biggest point I want to say is, hey, it's not a job fair. Very much different starting point at the conference than job fairs or applying online, doing handover of resumes and referrals to friends and companies. It's very much advanced. And I think that number of offers and then the average days to placement can speak to that. Just, the economic landscape. We released an episode 227 with Chuck Alvarez and Joel Junker, both were partners and the senior leaders in the company, back in August, on how JMOs can win in today's market, and what we're seeing and what we're feeling out there. There's a lot of economic turmoil. You got a government shutdown. Things overseas that are happening. It just kind of feels like the new normal, and we've been operating in this for quite a while now. And I say the new normal as it can be doom and gloom on what you read out there online. The important factor is that companies really do operate their companies based off of geopolitical market that's out there right now. And so decisions that have been made on high levels, interest rates, inflation, everything that's all going out there. Here's what I want to say is because of the need for the Cameron Brooks JMO and the JMOs out there, and the need for leaders, as well as all of our great alum who are out there coming back to hire and who know about Cameron Brooks since we've existed as a company, really allows us to kind of create our own little mini economy here. And that's what we do in every single one of these conferences. And so we got another episode where Chuck and Joel talk about year in review, and that will go out to everybody here very soon. So just a little bit about what we're seeing, what we're feeling right now. So some companies, I'm going to go through just a list. This is not an all exhaustive list. Motorola Solutions, they are a mission critical communication solutions, public safety company, 10.65 billion in 24 revenue. They came for a senior account manager role. Maylink Solar is a leading commercial EPC, so engineering, procurement, and construction firm. They design, they build, maintain these photovoltaic solar systems. They're a Cincinnati-based company, and they're part of Maylink, the broader Maylink Corporation. They came from a solar project manager role. Hemlock Semiconductor, really at the heart of all electronics since 1961. Very neat company, are a leading global provider of material called hyperpure polysilicon. It's the only polysilicon manufacturer headquartered in the United States. Conductors, big topic right now. So this company is a very neat company to be part of, and they got a great hire here at the conference. They're 80% owned by Corning, which was also at the conference. And they came for a production leader role. We're going to call it one level, what I call one level up the wedding cake. You're going to hear that. That's a Cameron Brooksism, but really just a leader of leader role, managing roughly 250 to 500 person operation up in Hemlock, Michigan. Horace Mann is a specialized financial services company, an insurance company founded in 1945 by two teachers. And so they specialize within the teaching realm, offer a full suite of financial products, life insurance, auto, home, as well as just retirement and financial planning solutions. So traded on the New York Stock Exchange, 2024 revenues of 1.6 billion. That was for a director of a territory development role. So really kind of like a sales role, but had a neat opportunity to get into basically kind of running your own business, becoming your own agent owner, what they call. Cardinal Glass, management owned corporation. They're a leader in the residential glass industries. Revenues of about $3 billion a year. They design and fabricate some of the most advanced residential glasses in the industry. Large manufacturing footprint, 49 manufacturing locations across the United States, and some of their largest customers are Marvin and Pella, Anderson, which are big glass makers. Repsol Renewables in North America, they're part of Repsol Spain, which is a global integrated they're an energy company, a renewable energy company headquartered in Madrid, Spain. Operate 20 different countries. 60 billion in revenue. They essentially they own, operate solar, wind, and energy storage projects across the United States. So they came for a plant manager role, managing one of their largest solar plants. Caterpillar, I'm not going to talk about them. Cody's going to speak about them because that's where he's going to work. Same with Twist Bioscience, that's where Ian's going to launch his career. Corning, I do want to speak to Corning. They had multiple different hiring groups here, and this is a wonderful company. They are a leading innovator in the material science of glass. Been around for a really long time, 13.1 billion in revenue. They're on the Fortune 500. They had 3 hiring groups here. Corning MTE, Corning Optical Communications for their core rotational engineering program, and Corning Propel. And I do want to speak to the 3 of those because I think it's really neat what they're doing, and they're a great client company of ours. So MTE does capital projects, facility engineering, part of that division. So essentially they plan, they design, and execute these big major capital facility projects across Corning's global network. Optical Communications Rotational Engineering Program really was seeking to look for those engineers in a 1-year immersion program within their MAKE and their technology invent organizations. And then their Propel program, which was a new program this year that first time they were at the conference, and it's a 2-year immersive really development experience program that was designed for Cameron Brooks JMOs. And the need is, hey, we need really high level manufacturing leaders. And the idea is, let's go through this development program for 2 years. And then, let's get these strong leaders out there into high advanced roles, maybe into like really director level roles when they get out. And so they hired, I believe, 6 people at the conference. So very, very neat company. TLD Americas is a new company. Yeah, really neat company. Essentially, they're a aviation ground support equipment and life cycle services company, and so they're part of TLD Group, which really has been around for more than 60 years. They are really the aviation experts, and they have manufacturing facilities in Europe and Asia and Middle East, all over the world. The company TLD Group is headquartered at Hong Kong, but TLD Americas was here for sales manager role, really within the focusing on the aviation ground support industry at all your major airports. So when you pull up your Delta 737 or your Southwest flight, there's a bunch of and you're getting off and you're going on the runway. A lot of their equipment is on the ground there, and so this is a sales rep role. Next, really neat company growing so fast. Essentially, they're a digital prescription lifecycle management platform. And so what they do is they connect pharmaceutical manufacturers, prescribers, and patients through this seamless end-to-end system that allows them to just have a better experience when it comes to getting what they need. Growing 48% higher revenue per script, 52% higher fill rate, 41% more fills per patient. So they're doing over 600 million. Founded in 2016, and they are backed by a bunch of top tier investment firms such as Fidelity, VC, 1789 Capital, Circano. So really neat role, and this was for an operations supervisor role. Boss Scientific, a leading medical device company within cardiac rhythm management. Just a wonderful company. They just continue to come back. A few Cameron Brooks alumnus back from the late 90s to the 2000s are senior leaders and area VPs, the top of the top within the Boss Scientific, and really paved the way for JMOs. And so they love hiring JMOs. So they came from multiple roles within cardiac rhythm management and within their electrophysiology group, which is the electricity of the heart. Anchor Packaging, one of our alum came back to hire. They're a leader in the food packaging industry. They were actually just acquired by Georgia Pacific, which Georgia Pacific is. They're a Coke Industries company, so it's going to be really good for the company. And then Medline, which is one of the largest manufacturers and distributors of healthcare supplies in the United States. So this is not an all-exhaustive list. However, just you see the variety of here, and every single one of these companies came for different roles. So I'll go through a few sample positions. Like I said, business analysis. Maylink Solar came for a project manager role. A market manager role, which is really kind of like working within the sales and the marketing organization for Amcor, which is a packaging company. HANA Group came for a commercial manager role, project management business analyst role for a company called Eurofin Scientific. We've got a bunch of great Cameron Brooks alum there. In the B2B sales realm, some sample positions with Boss Scientific. Motorola was here for senior account manager role out of San Diego, really kind of running the Southern California territory. Horace Mann was there as well. And then TLD Americas for an area sales manager. Kind of going into the engineering management realm, Corning Optical, Corning Gorilla Glass. I mean, there's so many engineering roles because we had a lot of very technical backgrounds at this conference. And then team leadership. I mentioned earlier, production manager. Cody's interviewed for the senior production manager role at Caterpillar. A bunch of our JMOs are going over to Corning Propel and launching their careers there, and then Hemlock Semiconductor. So here's a sample interview schedule from the conference. This is what you get at the conference, and it looks like a lot, and it kind of is a lot. We explain this and how to get into your interviews. As you can see, this is an individual who started off on Monday at 10 a.m. and went to 4:45 p.m. on Monday. Started off with the sales role, Boston Scientific out of Texas. Went to Eurofin Scientific, interviewing for multiple different locations with them at 11:30. Maylink Solar, quick turnaround at 12:15, and then back to another Boston Scientific out of Colorado Springs for an EP mapping specialist into Motorola Solutions and then the Medline. And so that was all within day one. And then day two had one, two, three, four, five interviews. So start off with HANA Group in the morning, went to a marketing role. After that, back to a sales role to a to another role with Twist, and then to Joa Pack for really like an IT manager kind of business analyst role. So this is what it looks like. You've got all your access codes in here and your primary or secondary or tertiary communications. And we'd walk you through this as well at the conference. But here's a sample of an interview schedule for someone who attended the conference. I'm gonna click it over here to our panelists, and I'm just gonna briefly introduce them. I'll start with Cody, Army Air Defense Officer, getting out as a major. He's going to work for Caterpillar in a senior production manager role. And I think when Cody sent me that picture, I think he was probably maybe a junior captain in that one, or maybe a first lieutenant. I'm just kidding, but looking sharp there. And then in Ian, Air Force intelligence captain, and is getting out, going to work for Twist Bioscience in an account manager role. And so I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna kick it over to Cody just to introduce himself and tell us a little bit more about Caterpillar, what he's doing with Caterpillar when he launches his career, and then maybe kind of why he chose Caterpillar. And then we'll go over to Ian, and we'll get going on the questions.
Thanks, Rock. Really happy to be here. And yeah, you're right. It was not junior captain, but I was the captain. That was right before I took command. So it was an older photo, but my dog looks great in it, so I had to include it. So for Caterpillar, I interviewed and was selected for the senior production manager position, and that falls within their internal supply logistics. So essentially what I'll be doing is working with a team to coordinate at each of their working stations for ease of understanding, I guess, for all of the people who are actually producing and assembling the equipment, to make sure that they have all of the components and parts and kits that are required for each of their steps, and that we're leaning forward about 2 to 3 days at each of those stations so they don't run out and cause those bottlenecks. Why I chose Caterpillar? I mean, I was going back and forth from my offers up until the morning of my predestined deadline to make a decision. And it really came down to going through each individual company, looking at the comparison of locations for my wife, especially, but then also looking at the long-term goals within the company. And I was lucky enough to be kind of one step up on the wedding cake, so to speak, but two of my other offers were also one step up, and compensation was about the same. Work schedule was about the same. Realm of responsibility was about the same. So it was really tough. But Caterpillar, one of the great things about the company, what really won me over, was they have a very similarly aligned talent development program within Caterpillar, where like for the Army, we have what's called AIM for our actual resume and our skills that are listed. Caterpillar has their own internal system that does that as well. And they have people who are actively looking for promotions or reassignments within the company from different areas. And they're looking at individuals. And right before we arrived, one of my soon-to-be colleagues, Zach, he got a call about one of his subordinate leaders asking them, hey, this guy has checked on his profile that he's willing to relocate. What is your impression of him? Would he be a good fit for this position? So seeing that they are working that, and then an internal mentorship program that they have with that same system, it just gave me a lot of hope for my career and longevity and my ability to develop within the company, continue to be value added to them.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Cody. So excited for you, and I know we've got some other great, Cameron Brooks alum up there. So you're going to a wonderful company. I'm jealous. Growing up, I mean, obviously, I love what I do here at Cameron Brooks, but growing up, I was always like, yeah, bleed yellow cat. So I like it. So really excited for you.
Thank
Ian,
you.
over to you. Just kind of a little bit about your background. Maybe since you have an interesting story, Ian, you've been out for a little bit, right? And we've been partnered for, I think it was 16 months total, right? So we've been walking alongside you for a long time. So maybe tell the group what you went up to, and then what Twist does, and what you're going to be doing next.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me here, Brock, and thank you as always for everything you did for my transition. Yeah, a little about me. My name's Ian Burgess from North Carolina. Served as an intelligence officer in the Air Force for 5 years and some change. Loved being in the Air Force. I actually grew up as a military brat. So my dad was in the Air Force. I assume there's probably a couple of other military brats in the chat here. Had the opportunity to spend 2 years overseas while I was in the Air Force. 1 year stationed in Turkey, 1 year deployed to Israel. Also was stationed in North Carolina supporting the F-15 Strike Eagle out of there. So really enjoyed the combination of leadership experience and then also I've always been a very curious person. I've always loved to learn, and being an intelligence officer really rewarded me for that. When I decided to transition, that was a lot of what I was looking for. But before I get to that, I should probably talk about some of the timing of that. So I transitioned out of the Air Force in April of this year and then spent 6 months hiking the Appalachian Trail, which was a fantastic experience. I strongly recommend it to anyone out there who's interested. And finished that in October. I had a beard about down to here. I shaved that off and then had a couple of weeks to really focus in and lock in on the conference preparation. I'd already been doing some preparation up to that point, but really that last month was really game time for me. And then had a great time at the conference. I interviewed with 10 companies. Really loved Twist from the beginning, very early on. When I first read the job description, I got excited about it. So what Twist does is they're a synthetic biology company. So they manufacture DNA, synthetic DNA, that is used by researchers in academia and also in private industry to come up with technologies that are hopefully going to change the world. So, for example, engineering crops that are more drought resistant or engineering bacteria that are genetically modified so that they produce plastic as a waste product as opposed to having to use fossil fuels. And so Twist is on the supplier end of all of that. They supply the DNA at scale and very accurately as well. It's an industry where small mistakes can have a real negative impact on the final product, as you can imagine. So loved that from the beginning. Loved the people that I spoke with there. It'll be a sales position, so I'll be an account manager. I'm responsible for growing the business in the Northwest region. So I'll be. I was going to say stationed. I'll be living.
Right.
Yeah. I'll be responsible. In my mind, it's still stationed. Portland, Seattle, and potentially Vancouver as well. But most of the business will be in Seattle. So
Okay.
really
Very good.
excited.
And you're going to be living in Seattle to start off with.
I will.
Okay.
I will. I have a
Okay.
cross country drive coming up on not this coming Monday, but the one after that. So wish me luck.
Super exciting. I love it. I love it. And tell me real quick a little bit more though, Ian, like what's the real value proposition? Like what's the real value prop of basically what Twist does and what can it do and why is the company growing so much right now?
Yeah, so the traditional method of manufacturing a
Yeah.
gene is that you use what's called the 96 well approach. So you can imagine a bunch of tiny test tubes that are arranged on a space about the size of an index card.
Yeah.
And then each of those test tubes can produce a small bit of that gene, but you only get one from that size, that footprint.
Mhm.
Twist has miniaturized that, so they print the DNA onto a silicone chip, similar to
Yeah.
how semiconductors are made.
Yeah.
And by doing that, they can produce 9,600 genes in the same space. And then
Mhm.
the silicone is also a lot more scalable, so they can produce it faster and at larger scale as well. So that's really why they're growing so fast. And the hope is that they can find customers whose technologies will need that in the future, and then they grow with their clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really exciting stuff.
Super neat. Super neat. And you sound so smart, like so much smarter than me. Real quick, what did you guys both I'll start with you, Ian. Where did you go to school? What'd you major in?
Yeah, I went to Duke for college, and I majored in the best science of all, which is political science,
Very
and
good.
had a great time. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Okay, I like it. And then Cody, what about you?
I too am a poli-sci grad from
Okay.
Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, now called Penn West Edinburgh. I think
Yep.
they changed that. But I also attended the Command General Staff College for my master's in military operational studies.
Yeah, I love it. Very good. Very good. Right. Well done. Well done. I think it really both to you guys speaks to, your background and into your leadership experiences. So I kind of want to start there. And what I like to do is really start by like kind of take it in phases, pre-conference preparation, the conference itself, and then kind of into the follow-up process and how you got to ultimately, making a decision on where you'd want to go. And so maybe start out, Cody, just like because I think this is a journey, right? It's really hard, right? It's a journey, and I've been thinking a lot about this, and this is what we do at Cameron Brooks is we help, we kind of help strategize on what your objective is, and then why is that your objective? And ultimately, how are you going to get there? And I've seen so often that people go right to step 3 is like the execution without thinking really about the long-term goal and the long-term, plan in mind. And I did that myself. I'm guilty of it, right? But the start here is like when you were getting out of the military, like what were you thinking? What was going through your mind when you started this journey?
Well, so I'm still not quite out yet. I got my
Yeah.
my ratings
Cool.
back yesterday, so on the
There you
the
go.
final now.
Yeah.
Just submitted my terminal leave request, so we'll see on the
Yeah.
exact dates. But
Mhm.
for me, I mean, I was coming out of CGSC and went into SAMS for a second master's program, thinking like I'm doing 20 years in the military. I'm going to keep this as my career, and then I'll start to look at developing myself to take on a new opportunity once I get to that retirement point. And then had the little stop sign or speed bump of medical, so went through a med board process. And really, the first knee jerk reaction was, oh crap, like I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, how am I going to provide for my now wife? Because we just got married in October, and my
Yeah.
dogs, of course.
Yep.
Where am I going to live? I had absolutely no clue. But luckily, when I was originally considering transitioning after my first obligation was complete, I'd talked to Joel and had a great impression from Cameron Brooks. So reached back out, and really that the process for me was a journey of self-discovery, especially pre-conference, really trying to figure out what my experience is and how it best translates to the business world. And finding those experiences for me was the biggest struggle of the pre-conference. As a major who's been in for now 15 years, getting it down to a single page resume and a 45-minute quick, non-jargoned conversational interview was a difficult time for me. And I think that the Discord chat, if you are listening to this and you are not in a Discord chat and are not getting on and doing just peer-to-peer interview prep and practicing and just being brutally honest with your colleagues as they're going through it too, and receiving that feedback, then you're making a mistake, because it is so helpful to get another set of eyes and ears to listen to what you're saying, and then
Yeah.
to give the military specific background of, I've had a similar experience. Let's go through and talk, like maybe you should focus more on this side, or what I think you're trying to say is this, and really develop those answers. But the conference itself is a marathon, so be prepared. The pre-conference strategy and information briefs, you'll be spending 2 full days of just receive mode while trying to quickly digest and understand and approach which companies you want. And Joel and Brock and everybody say, don't make your decision. Don't, rack and stack them. I absolutely did. I'm guilty of that. And like they said, my number one was not my number one at the end. My number one up until 2 days before my decision was not my number one at the end. It was a constant change as I continue to dig deeper and learn more. So remain
Mhm.
open to that and continue through that, and you'll be set up for success. And just bring some caffeine for the conference, and you'll be good.
Yeah, yeah. Really like a lot of what you said, Cody, is, the journey of self-discovery, figuring out how am I going to clearly communicate my background and what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling and what I've done in the military to these people. Now, the second thing I want to say is, you got a lot of change going on in your life right now. I mean, you just got married, which is wonderful. So excited for you. I was in a similar boat. I got married 45 days before I got out of the military and started here with Cameron Brooks, and then I started a new position, and I was like, whoa, like my whole life has been flipped upside down, and it's just totally different, but it's so exciting. So very excited for you. And I want to come back to some of this stuff on how DPP might have helped and what recommendations you'd give to those who are getting ready for the January conference or a conference next year on, how you went through that. I want to shift over to Ian. Ian, what were you thinking pre-conference or 16 months ago? And then kind of, be honest and be transparent with me. Like, what were some of the things that you were feeling? You can say, I had concerns, I had reservations about these things. These are the things that were the top of my mind. And I think that's what everyone really wants to hear, because they're probably feeling the same thing.
Yeah, I imagine there's a few people in a similar situation to me. So in the beginning, I was very location restricted. At first, I was considering primarily Washington D.C. and maybe a couple of the major cities around that. And the reason for that is because my fiance works in tech, and we knew she would probably need to move to a major city of some sort. And we also had family on the East Coast,
Yeah.
so this decision of where I go would affect both of us. So that was what my original decision. But through some conversations that we had, eventually I decided to open up that aperture a little bit. And I got to say, I am really glad that I did that. So I kept some limitations. So I kept,
Mm.
I'm still looking for a major city, um,
Mhm.
for her career, but I am willing to look at California. I'm willing to look at Texas and some of those other
Yeah,
things. And I think that
totally.
had I kept restricted like that, I would have had far more interviews than I had, and Twist would not have shown up on my interview list, so I would have missed
Yeah,
out on this incredible opportunity. So that's
yeah.
one thing. And then I would also say I'm really glad that I started so early and gave myself that
Mhm.
time. I think I was talking to maybe Josie on the phone one time, and she
Yeah,
said it's good that you have time to walk the process, and I think that phrase has like always stuck with me, walking the process. And I
yeah,
understand that we're in December now and folks have the conference next month, but that's
yeah.
still actually quite a bit of time. There are people that might join Cameron Brooks before this conference and still compete. So you still
Yep.
have time to walk the process, but it means using, each available day a
Mhm.
little bit, make a little bit of progress, do a practice interview, read some of a book, like,
Yeah,
walk the process so that by the time you get to the conference, it's deeply ingrained in you, and then
mhm.
you can have a fun time there.
Yeah. In starting early though, Ian, what did it allow you to you said walk the process. Tell me a little bit more about, like, what that looked like for you, as you walked the process with Cameron Brooks.
Yeah. First, I would say, there's no secret to this. Everything you need to do to succeed has been told to you. So do the readings. I
Yeah,
found the readings very helpful for learning how to speak the language of business. And like Cody was talking about, learning how to translate military experience into civilian experience, you have to know the words. So doing the readings I found really helpful, and getting into the extended reading list as well. Why do the minimum? Try to get into those extra books.
yeah,
There's a lot of goodness in there as well. Beyond that, I would say the most valuable thing I did was talking to alum. And I reached out to you and asked if you could put me in touch with some people. I also used the LinkedIn page. Like, for example, right now, a 30 something alum just got hired by companies, many of them going to be at the January conference, and Cameron Brooks is sharing all of their posts on LinkedIn. So everyone
yeah.
go and find people that probably got hired by the company that's going to hire you, and you can go ask that person to talk. And I promise they're in a very generous and helpful
Yeah,
mood right
yeah.
now. For one of the companies, I actually wound up speaking to someone who I'd already talked to, because
Wow.
companies tend to send alum they've recently hired back to help with interviewing because we speak the
Yeah,
language.
yeah,
Also, overall, 5 of the 9 companies that I interviewed with, I'd either already spoken to someone who was at that company or someone who was very familiar with that company. So that really sped up, like, I was excited to see the list of who I was interviewing with, because I was like, "Oh, okay, yes, I've spoken to someone at that one, and that one, and that one, and I know a lot about
yeah,
that one, and these 3 or 4, okay, I really need to look at these because I don't know much." So I would say talking to people, extremely helpful.
yeah. I love it. I love it. And I just want to really reiterate what you said. Networking to learn, with Cameron Brooks. I think that's the biggest thing. And in the reading, I was talking to someone today, and I was just like, "Hey, read, read, read." It sounds like I'm just telling you to read this book and, to read it. I'm not. It's so you can read it, you can learn, you can apply, you can start increasing that business literacy and really start figuring out what have I done in the military that relates. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from what I just, you say that I would give to everybody else. Location. The search can be complicated. There's other people involved, right? You have other decision makers in your life. So maybe kind of talk a little bit about how did we approach the search strategy with you?
I was very open
Mhm,
for my locations because
mhm,
I've lived all over with the military,
mhm.
and I'll be honest, I didn't love any of those army towns. They were not the place I wanted to settle down forever.
Yeah,
So I was just like, I have no idea. And my wife is, she's originally from Ecuador. So the two places she's lived is Kansas City and Miami. And the only state she knows about are Florida and Kansas, and I guess a little Missouri.
yeah,
But so for me, with her, I mean, she is, and I said this even in my interview, is the most supportive human I've ever met, which is great, but it's not great when you're a soldier trying to make a decision. He's like, you need to be told, like, this is what we're going to do. But she was very supportive to the point of up until I had completed all of my in-person visits and second round interviews, she wouldn't tell me what her preference was because she didn't want to dissuade me from any of the positions or locations. And when it came down to it, it was really diving in and picturing how your life together is going to be. We looked at houses, we looked at neighborhoods, we looked at immediate plan, 2-year plan, 5-year plan. Where would we want to be? And looking at the career path too for those companies. What's it relocation timeline for these companies? Or is this I'm going to go here and stay here kind of position? And so that really played into it a lot. But it was a little bit of a struggle trying to get her to give me some candid, blunt feedback of what her preferences were, because she was just so supportive and was willing to go anywhere. I'll be honest with location. Never in a million years had you asked me a month ago or any time before that, do you want to move to Illinois? My answer would have been like, Illinois, why would I? Absolutely not. But through doing a lot of research and comparison, I really have fallen in love with the area, but especially the company. And that's enough to get me there for sure.
Yeah, love it. It's great. Thank you, Cody. What about you, Ian?
The things I would add are, treating this as a team decision with your partner, having those deep conversations, and really being honest with yourself about what your preferences are, because there may be areas that are not ideal to move to, but they would work. And if we exclude those, then we're maybe unnecessarily giving up opportunities there. Also, just in terms of mindset overall, I tried to approach this as this is probably the number 2 most important decision I'll ever make besides choosing my partner. And I think it deserves that level of seriousness. And for me, that meant that I wanted to make sure that every resource I had available, I was using, and I was using it as best I could. And that includes Cameron Brooks. So I think Cameron Brooks is a system that works best. People have a broad career search. It's not really designed to target one city and zoom in on that city and explore that. So, for people that want to work with Cameron Brooks, I think that's the best way to make this partnership successful, is to try and be as broad as possible while still being honest about what would work for their partner.
Yeah. And I think that's what you said is I want to touch on a little bit is it's about, hey, yeah, great. We got these are our A-tier locations. Perfect. We will show you everything you're fit for there. Okay. What's a B-tier location with an A-tier opportunity? Okay, good. Let's go to C plan, and kind of that is how we like to talk about mitigating risk. And what you said, I think, Ian, is you mitigating risk. And what I think that all JMOs are really good at, right? The military teaches you to do that, right? They teach you to, okay, here you go. Here's the mission. Here's the objective. Get to planning. Right. And you don't just go into an operation without planning and without thinking about a good risk mitigation. Or, I think about when I was in the Navy, oh man, so many ORM and briefs and how are we mitigating risk? That was the one thing that the commander was always talking about is, okay, well, how are we mitigating this risk, or the captain of the ship or whoever. Right. And I think that same mentality should be applied to the transition. So a lot of good nuggets in there. Thank you, guys. I'm going to shift to the conference itself. So maybe start here. Ian, when we went into the conference, what were you wanting to interview for? What was on your mind? What types of career fields were you wanting to interview for? And I'll go over to you, Cody.
Yeah. Briefly, I was pretty evenly split between team leadership and the business analysis and sales positions. And sales was kind of a new arrival. Originally, I thought it was going to be team leadership, business analysis, and then, like many people, as I learned more about sales, realized that I had more and more relevant experience to that. And I'm really glad I did that. That's where I wanted to go. So.
Yeah, I like it. Very good. And Cody, what about you?
For me, I was open. I said I want to interview with everyone. I really was focusing on team leadership. So it's been a lot of my background and where I draw a lot of my personal job satisfaction from. It's helping to develop people. So having a team to work with and to help lead and help develop was a big aspect of it. But I did have a few positions that I had far smaller teams or no team at all, including a sales job that I had interviewed for. But when I was going in, I was thinking, I just want team leadership, something. In my mind, I was picturing like this office environment that I'm going in and helping out in some corporate type environment. And obviously, working at the largest truck manufacturer, Caterpillar in the United States, it's not where I'll be working. I'll be working on the factory floor. But I'm so excited for it, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity to kind of expound on my personal thoughts and my uninformed assumptions and find those opportunities that were really the right fit.
Yeah, Very good. I like it. I'll go back to you, Ian. Just anything you want to talk about as it pertains to the conference, like maybe it's a biggest surprise, or hey, what advice would you give to someone getting ready for the conference right now?
Yeah, two things jump to mind. The first one is doing full simulated interviews at some point as practice. I had probably 4 or 5 of those, and the full 30-minute session with maybe it's a Cameron Brooks alum or someone else who I'm talking to, and have them at first try to build rapport. At first you're just getting to know each other, and then they get into the questions, and at the end we have to close, like do the full process, and then have feedback after it. I thought that was really helpful to get a feel for how energy kind of changes
Yeah.
after 30 minutes, and what things that I say are interesting, what things kind of make them a little bored. I can tell from the body language. That was really helpful. And then the second thing would be those interview prep worksheets
Yeah.
that Cameron Brooks will give. I actually didn't use the specific worksheet, but I copied each of the question prompts into my notebook. I did each of those. I tried to do each one before the interview. If I had time, I would do that
Mhm.
before the interview. And I thought that was really helpful to focus me in right before that interview and collect
Yeah.
all the scattered thoughts I had about that specific company. So those 2 things I think would be really helpful. And then you asked about a surprise. Honestly, I was surprised by how much I got to lead some of these interviews. Some people were very laid back, which is a gift. They're basically saying, "Well, you can run this interview however you want to," which is great because I know the things that I need to tell them and things I
Yeah.
practiced. But I was surprised by that. I would tell people to be prepared for that. Don't rely on the interviewer to drive things. And if they are driving things, that's good in its own way as well, because you know that they're serious about finding the right person. So that's what
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah. I like it. Very good. What about you, Cody?
Ian, final point, the energy, carrying the interview yourself, that's something that I was surprised by as well. I had 2 or 3 interviews that it was very laid
Mhm.
back in the way that they're approaching it, or just very low energy for the interviewers. And so I found that the interviews that I came out of most excited about, and the ones that I think went the best, were the ones where I got to really get involved with them, which brings me
Mhm.
to my biggest surprise, which was my first interview, the first one I've had in about 16, 17 years. And it was Caterpillar, first thing in the morning, Monday morning. And we went through their introductions. He asked me to introduce myself, and then he said, "What questions do you have?" That was where that my day and my conference started. I was like, "Oh crap!" I had a few. I had about 3 or 4 that I had put down, and I had some more. I've been noodling on. Hadn't really fully fleshed out. But I highly encourage you, when they say you'll have time to ask questions. I think there was one interview where I snuck in about 2 questions at the tail end, but every other interview was probably 50% or greater. Me asking questions, getting feedback, and building the conversation from there. And that led
Mhm.
to them having follow up questions like, "Oh, okay, your question was this. This was my answer. I responded. Like, that reminds me. Can you tell me about whatever?" I think I
Yeah.
only had one interview which was very structured using the bluff star method, and the way that they brought the questions in was like the interview prep workshops that we had. The rest of
Mhm.
them, it was different every single time. So just focusing on knowing yourself and your story, knowing what stories you want to bring up for what type of interview, how to focus it. I used the same position, my first command position, because it was my favorite job, and also probably one of the more impressive ones I had. But I tailored how I approached even the same subject I was talking about based on the position and company I was interviewing for what type of vernacular they wanted to hear, what proficiencies they wanted me to focus on to really demonstrate to them that I had them. So I used the same kind of information in a multitude of different ways, to being prepared to go off script and ask questions and have the energy to lead the interview. And I think the one big thing I'd say was a weakness for me is understand their roles. You do get a very limited time to review the companies, and I spent a lot of my time focusing on the company as a whole, the company's culture, the locations for the company, who some of the leaders were, getting on LinkedIn, reaching out to them, which are all good things. But I kind of left a little gap in my swing on understanding the specifics of the role that you're interviewing for. So really dig into what those responsibilities are, how they are articulating what they're looking for, and how you can best demonstrate that. Because one of my rare no's in the conference came from, it was actually my last interview. So
Yeah.
I was okay with it, but I didn't understand what they were looking for in the role. It was the IT manager position, and
Mhm.
I saw manager, and I thought I'm going to talk about managing and team leadership, and that was not at all what that role was looking
Yeah.
for. I mean, a little bit, but not the specifics. So really dig into that aspect and formulate your questions on that, and also get the information that you need too. It took me until my round 2 interviews and really after my first flight to a location, and I got back and I was like, I still don't know some things about these companies that I need to know for my decision. Use those opportunities, not, the self aggrandizing or like, what can you do for me type questions, but what do you need to know about the position? What do you want from your job? What do you want to be doing? How will you be performing day to day in that company? How will the company be expecting you to act, or what to wear, or what the environment is? Who comprises your team? Those things I wish I would have dug into a little earlier, but all's well that ends well. And I'm very happy with where I'm going and did well enough in the interviews. But really, like Ian said, be prepared to bring the energy yourself. It may not be in the room when you get there, and have those questions locked and ready.
Yeah, I like it. I heard two main things there: asking quality questions and really understanding the role so you can connect to a background. And I would really try to hit on that pre-conference in the workshops. Call it the three-legged stool, right? Connect your background. You got to build rapport, and you got to ask. You got to make, show genuine interest, and you can show interest through the quality of your questions. And so, yeah, good feedback for the group here. And tell me a little bit about the conference briefings. What was helpful at the conference briefings?
Yeah, I thought it was really helpful, the discussion about what to expect as far as your energy over the 2 days. Joel
Yeah,
talked about, hey, most people, they're gonna be kind of medium ready when they start the day, and then they're gonna ramp up over the course of the first day. And then the second day, they'll be sort of performing well, and they'll get tired towards the end. And he warned people, he said, "Don't do that. Hit the
yeah,
ground running from the beginning." I found that warning really helpful. And I think it
yeah,
was very helpful for me that my first interview went generally pretty well. And so it took all the nerves out. If you can get a win that first interview, it'll take all the nerves away, and you'll be having fun the rest of the time. So I thought that
yeah,
was really helpful. And then the company briefings also very helpful. It is a short window of time that it's have to get up to speed and understand the companies.
yeah,
That gets you most of the way. That gets you most of the way. But
yeah,
but certainly the extra work beforehand that people can do, the extra research besides what Cameron Brooks tells people, the extra research we do on our own to learn more, all of that will pay off. I think relying just
yeah,
on the Cameron Brooks briefings it might be enough, it might not, but it's a bit of a
yeah.
gamble. But
Definitely not enough.
yeah, there you go. Strongly recommend people, yeah, supplement that. So yeah, it was all really helpful. My partner actually would sit in on the company briefings with me, and it was really nice to have her there, hearing what I was hearing. She got to see what
Yeah,
I was excited about. I got to see what she was excited about. So I recommend
yeah,
that for people as well. Share as much as you can of the conference with
absolutely.
people that are involved in your decision.
Yeah, absolutely. We want that and we encourage it. And even in DPP calls, like please, like we want spouses, significant others, partners to be involved in this process and major decision makers, right? So we want them to be there and be well informed. Okay, let's give me one recommendation that you would give that is just like totally random. It could be like, hey, make sure you have your coffee maker in the same room during the conference. I don't know, but one just like thing that you found that was helpful for you throughout the chaos and the stress of 4.5 days of getting a fire hose of information and getting asked a ton of questions.
For me, I found after about interview number 3 that my rhythm, and what I did is after each interview, I got up, I left my office where I had set up my. I know I got my kind of clutter back here with my bookshelves and everything now, but I was pushed up against the wall and cleared off the wall. So
Mhm,
it was very in line with the
mhm,
requirements and recommendations. But I got up and left the room, and then I took my notebook with me with the notes that I had taken
mhm.
from my pre-interview notes and my post-interview notes. And then I went back and I really evaluated the company, and I wrote sticky notes and stuck it right on the front of my interview prep sheet for each of those companies. Like, this is what I thought and felt in that interview. And some of them I was writing like great team, very energetic, good fit culture. But taking the time to get myself out of the environment that I was sitting in, where I'm just on sell me, sell me, sell me, like you should hire me because, and then going back to really digest that and think, okay, what did I actually feel in that interview? And is this place the right fit for me? Is this role the right fit for me? And doing that helps me to be better prepared to try and limit down my number of round twos when you're getting, as the number said, about 7 out of 10 are saying yes to you. You only have so much time to fly around and do online follow-up interviews. And I booked mine solid because I was not great at cutting out people and companies because I didn't take enough time to really do that, especially until after that third or fourth interview, really finding out where I fit and making sure that do everything that Carol Brooks is telling you to sell yourself, but also take that time to really make sure you're evaluating your personal preferences and your personal fit, and then articulating that with your partner, significant other, or dog.
This is a great question from Dakota in the chat, and we'll have you answer it, Ian, to start. Dakota asked, "Hey, what were the final month, few weeks before your conference like for you? What final preparation did you focus on that you found most helpful?"
Yeah. Again, I would go back to like the mindset of this is one of the most important decisions I'm going to make. I want to treat it appropriately for that. So I cleared that month. I didn't went to be with my partner because I hadn't seen her while I was hiking the trail. But
Yeah.
while I was there, I didn't have any other commitments really. I just left as much space as I could for eating, getting workouts in, and practicing. And that was really helpful because I didn't have to burn myself out the 4 days before the conference trying to get up to speed. I had a slow walk the process, right? Slow ramp up. So I strongly recommend people trying to clear their schedule as much as possible. And then more specifically, like I mentioned, doing those full practice interview sessions, very, very helpful. And I didn't mention earlier, flipping it and being the practice interviewer, very, very helpful. Getting to experience what it's like when someone else asks you good questions is very interesting. And getting to experience what it's like when someone asks you scripted questions that are not interesting, or when they're pushing to show it. That'll really help people figure out how much they should be throttling. And it'll also help people read the interviewer when they're in an interview, like, oh, I'm going too long. They're getting bored. I remember what that felt like. Let me,
Yeah.
wrap this one up or switch to a different story.
So good.
Yeah. So
So
really
good.
recommend that, the practice interviews.
Yeah, very good. I love that. I love that. Yeah, because you could feel it, when you were talking to other people who came to the conference, obviously who were good and who accepted offers and got offers, but like probably reading notes, trying to utilize, dual screen, I'm sure. I recommend do not do that. We won't let you do that, but don't do that. But yeah, you really being able to get into that like coach, hey, to master this, I kind of want to be a coach here. I want to see what it feels like. So I think it's a kind of reverse engineering the process there. So I like it, Ian. Very good. Cody, how many follow-ups did you mentioned earlier? How many follow-ups did you go on, and what was your follow-up process like?
So my follow-up process, I originally had 7. I had 9 yeses, had 7 that I said yes to, and then cut it down to 6. Ended up going out to 3 locations and touring the companies and absolutely loved the opportunity. I had 3 that were online as well. Those online ones, that was my first one, was with Campbell's. It was online because they have multiple locations and they were interviewing for multiple different geographic areas. So getting all the decision makers, all the people who were weighing in on the decision together made it infeasible to go out there. That was an interesting experience. I think coming straight out of the conference, I was well prepared for it. When I went to my first in-person visit, I really didn't know what to expect. It was a great time at all of my visits that I did, and I ended up doing 2 more interviews in between my last 2 visits, with Caterpillar being the first interview and the final visit, and my home that I'm going to now. But I found that really taking the time again to just evaluate how you're doing in each of those ones, the follow-up process, especially the online, second round interviews, it was almost entirely the companies trying to sell me on their position. You're getting to that point where it's like you're already here, we've already said yes. One of our decision makers, if not the final decision maker, has said you're a good fit for this role in this company. So go in with, again, questions prepared of like, what do I need to know more about the company, about the position, about the area, so you can make an informed decision. Shout out to Amcor. They did a phenomenal job. The final thing I did before I left their offices was I got a little PowerPoint info brief on the different neighborhoods around the area. And he gave me, you're heading right back to the airport. Okay, on your route, it's like, I recommend stopping at this location based on what you're interested in, this one and this one. Take some pictures, send them to your wife. And I did. So it was great. Had they not done that as my first location I went to, I may not have thought to ask at every other interview, what's the geographic area like? What are the neighborhoods like? What are the schools like? Which is information that we needed to have to make a good informed decision about where we're going to go. But it's another lengthier, slower marathon than the conference is. But be prepared for it and just be flexible. I mean, I was sitting in the airport scheduling and adjusting plans for my next visit while I was at my first visit. I was going and doing online applications for jobs while I was, again, at the airport or at the hotel right after finishing another interview with a different company. So it's a lot of quick paced changes and switching gears, but it can be a really great and enjoyable opportunity to go out and visit some places if you let it.
Yeah, very good. I love it. Real quick, when you were applying to things online after, obviously, to get into the HR system, but were you reading any of the job descriptions? Were you reading any requirements? Did any of them like surprise you when you were reading through it?
So yes, there were definitely some surprises. One of them was it's like you're supposed to have 8 to 12 years of experience minimum in this specific field, and I was like, I have 0. But okay. I did run into some technical difficulties with those applications. Again, doing them kind of remotely. I was using my iPhone for them. So, and then also a lot of them are on the My Workday application, the website. So they have a drop down list of things like schools. And a general staff college is not on any of those lists. So I was panicking and just spamming Katie and Megan, which thank you to both of them for all of their help and support and patience, most of all, with me. But it was really just getting my information into the system. So after I got the first one like complete and my second one, which was the technical issues galore, I realized, okay, it's just really getting the data into the system so they can go through their administrative process, and it's less about trying to fight your way through another interview. It's not a gatekeeper at that point.
Yeah, very good. I love it. And just so you all know, you will have a lot of help from the follow-up team. The follow-up team is really it's Chuck, our CEO, Lauren Kordzik, principal of the company, Megan Miller, Katie, Andy, Michelle. Like there's just a whole team who's working that and working travel and logistics and deconflicting things. And so you'll have plenty of people there to help. Okay, so Ian, Ed has a question. He has 2. We'll start with this one. Will we have a chance to speak with our rep, meaning a coach or a team member from Cameron Brooks, between interviews or between the days to try to help alleviate any issues that arise during the interview? Go ahead and answer.
For during the conference? Yeah. Well, in both cases, yes, during conference and after. During the conference, there was the coaching Zoom room that was really helpful. The site's like it's open just throughout the conference days, so people can go in and out as they need. And then I know there will be a hotline number that people can call if they need any help with anything. I got one of the companies that said no to me. It was really helpful for me to just reach out and ask, hey, was there any feedback from that company? I was really curious about why that no came in. So yes, there. And then for the follow-up process, that's also true. It might not be a Zoom room anymore, but I think Cameron Brooks was calling me after each follow-up interview and asking to check in. And what was the second question again?
The second question was, were there any go-to icebreaker questions you used at the start of an interview? Did you talk about the weather, sports teams?
The first would just be a note of caution on not being scripted. People can smell that. Just a note of caution, go into each one with an open mind, and for each company, there will probably be different opportunities. So for example, I interviewed with Hana Group, which they're a company that they run sushi kiosks in major retailers across the US. Really interesting company. And while I was with my partner, I found out one of their kiosks was just up the road in a grocery store. So I went and I bought sushi there. And so when I started that interview, we got to know each other. And I was like, "Hey, thanks for lunch today, by the way." And I had the sushi. So like little things like that can go a long way. Also, asking people how the conference is going might be a good one for them, because everybody's human, and there will be several companies probably who this is their first time. And just a quick, "Hey, yeah, how's the conference going for you?" They're not going to tell you who their favorite candidate is, but they'll tell you, "Oh, it's been a great time," or, "Oh, yeah, this is a busy day," or that little human connection can go a long way.
Yeah, yeah. Be genuine, be authentic. I think that's the biggest thing there. So I really like that. Really like that, Ian. Okay, I'm gonna answer two questions. Do companies ever offer to assist in moving you and your family if an offer is accepted? I say everybody has a different experience. I would say, generally speaking, you want to keep your military move. However, companies do have relocation packages. I'm not going to get into the details of all those because compensation is really just private information that is for you and you only and your boss and your family. But yes, companies do have relocation packages there. Other incentives, probably such as signing bonuses and things of that nature. Michael asks, once you receive formal offers from companies, how much latitude do you have to negotiate? This is definitely a question that I'd love to talk more about. It's like individually, if anybody has questions about this, because it's such a hard thing to navigate. I would say first off, every company that comes to the conference, their salary is pre-negotiated. When I say pre-negotiated, meaning like, hey, they come, here's the salary. Cameron Brooks will help walk through that with you as it pertains to salary on if you for example needed to do that, on how to do that and the proper ways to do that. But obviously you don't do that right from the start. um, just be smart about it, right? But yeah, there's definitely companies that come and they have a certain salary on the job description, and I know that there are people who interviewed for certain things at the conference that came out with compensation that was much higher than what was on the job description. And that's a lot of different factors there. And I saw Cody do this, right? And I know that can happen. So we'll just keep it at that. But it's it's definitely a topic of conversation that I think we definitely should dive into. Go
Brock, if I
ahead.
could jump in too, for Ryan's question, just in my
Yeah.
experience, so all four of my offers included some sort of assistance, and that could be anything from compensation like a signing bonus, or they have a company that they contract with to assist, and working and discussing that with the folks that are proffering the offers to you is something that I found a lot of success in. I was able to articulate, I do have my military move. The Army's going to be moving me. How does this relate to it? And then going into the negotiation, I was very, very, very afraid to even broach the subject at going into the receiving the offers, because I didn't want an offer to be rescinded. I did, however, on my third offer that came in, the person who I hadn't actually spoken to in any of my interviews, she was one of the human resources folks for the company. She asked me, how does this compare to your current offers? And so I just honestly told her, I was like, it's actually a little bit lower. And during that phone conversation, I didn't say, will you come up? I didn't try and fight for more money. She immediately was like, well, let me text the approval authority here, and it got bumped up to match, which made my decision harder. They do have that levity. And then in one conversation, it was, we're at kind of our max for compensation to try and win you over, but we can try and offer some extra incentives on the moving bonus side to help cover that cost, as I was going in the house hunting decision making process too. So there is opportunity for it. I would personally, I would recommend restraint. Don't push for it immediately. The offers that you get will be competitive. There's nobody out here that's trying to lowball. The companies are coming, finding quality candidates that are prepared by quality coaches, and they have an expectation of that quality. And if they're saying yes and they're providing you an offer, they're coming to the table with likely the best that they can get approved, if not very close to it. So don't worry so much about that. They're going to come with an appropriate offer for you, and you'll be satisfied with the offer, and just satisfied to be done going through the interview.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's all great advice, Cody. And I like that it's coming from you. Sometimes people don't believe me, but yeah, I think restraint is the best thing. If it does get to something where you need to negotiate, hey, always go for advice. Go for advice and pick up the phone, and you'll chat with Chuck, Lauren, on how to best handle that. So you're going to be in good hands when it comes to that. And here's what I do want to say about compensation is there's not a lot of information out there, right? On compensation, how to best handle it. What information is out there, I would say there's a lot of really bad advice out on the internet. Be very, very careful, right? By going to ChatGPT and figure out how do I best negotiate this offer? Blah, 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 blah. Next, for these roles, you're getting into complex industry, like industry experienced hires, where people have, like Cody mentioned, you need 8 to 12 years of manufacturing experience, right? If you have 8 to 12 years of manufacturing experience and you're getting into one of these roles, like company really wants you, okay? And in your ability outside of the military, this is not a knock on the military, but your ability to affect your compensation outside the military, well, you have so much more ability to do it, right? It's a performance-based environment. Your CEOs, your Cameron Brooks alum, that I can go look them up right now, who are making like $15 million a year, and they're 15 years post-military, right? Now, money's not everything. I'm just telling you, like, your ability to affect compensation is yeah, you have the ability to do it when you get out, okay? And so it's really, yeah, it's a wonderful topic to talk about. Let's see here. Josh asked Cody, I'm 15 years and 8 enlisted. How was the lead up with dealing with any imposter syndrome, being so many years removed from civilian jobs? How'd you deal with that?
So the easy answer is fake it till you make it. But I definitely was dealing with the imposter syndrome throughout. It took me probably until the conference itself to really be able to internalize the fact that these companies are coming looking for you. So Josh, there's a company out there that's looking for you, for what you have in your experience. They know that you are not the 8 to 12 years manufacturing experience guy that they're hiring. They know that you may not have the educational credentials that a traditional hire would, and they're still coming to these conferences looking for you. So going into it with that mindset and realizing I am just articulating my experiences to let them know what I do know. And I mean, one of the companies, not to name names, but it was solar in nature, and they asked me straight up, what do you know about how the solar thing functions? And I whiffed hard on the answer. I was about a 30% go at that station. And they were perfectly fine with it. They're like, oh, that's okay. Yeah. You know what? We'll definitely talk to you about this, and we'll give you some education on it. The companies are willing and prepared to develop you in the skills and the technical stuff that you don't have. So don't worry about that so much. Just show them who you are and be able to come to the table with, this is my experience, this is what I'm passionate about, and this is how I can bring value to the team. Those other things, the technical background, the credentialing, if they need it, they'll get you there. So don't let it stress you too much, and don't feel like an imposter, because they are here shopping for you. Just as much as you're selling yourself to them, they're selling themselves to you.
I love it. Great. Well done. Job well done answering that, Cody. And yeah, this is what I want to say for the whole group, or for a broader point. Yes, they are here doing non-traditional recruiting, but they're here for a reason, right? And we always say this, like, lead with your leadership. We're not leading with our certs. We're not leading with our education. We're not leading with our industry experience. Right? That's traditional recruiting. We're in the world of non-traditional recruiting right now. Now, once you get out and you get well established in your new role, you are now a traditional hire, right? And so it's much easier, right? So now I was thinking about my sister. For example, my sister works for Boston Scientific, and she's her significant other is in the Navy, and she has to relocate to San Diego, California. And it took her 1 week within Boston Scientific to have a new role in San Diego, California. It's so easy. She was all freaking out about it. And I was like, that's going to be a piece of cake. Here's how we're going to do it. And it happened within a week, right? And so they're here for your leadership. And this is why it's so important, and why the JMO, it's why we have a business. Cameron Brooks has existed for a really long time because of the JMO experience. And that's why they're here interviewing you all. And I get fired up. I get passionate about it, because there's no other experience in the world that is out there like the JMO gets. Like you just get pushed, you get challenged, you learn so much, and you develop so much in your leadership. And so, anyways, I'll get off my soap opera there, but I like what you said, Cody. I'm going to answer Isaac's question. During the second round of interviews, do they give advice on what to learn before day one of the job? They don't necessarily give you advice. I think that you just ask a lot of questions, right? In a way, um, when you're in the interviews, you're asking questions with the mindset of, hey, this is how I would do it. Going in, it's like I have this position. I start tomorrow. What do I need to know to be successful in the role? Cameron Brooks will help you a lot really understand the role, and then you're going to have to take it a step further. And then you ask a lot of questions, and through this whole process, you're going to learn more about the role. You will not make a decision about a position or a company without having all the facts. I guarantee it. And if you do, it's probably not a good decision to make. Okay. I'm going to close out here. Any final words, Cody, that you have, Ian, that you have? I know that you guys are very willing to give back to everybody. So you guys can drop your information in the chat. I guarantee there's going to be a bunch of people adding you on LinkedIn tonight and over the next couple of weeks. But any closing comments that you've got for the group, Cody, on the whole process or for the candidates coming to conferences in the future?
Yeah, I'd say first off, please reach out. I'm absolutely willing to help. I had to rush my timeline a bit, so I jumped ahead of my CSP timeline for the conference. So I've got next week off, and I'm still a CSP Cameron Brooks candidate with no responsibilities. So if you want one-on-one or group feedback, me to run some interviews for you, I'm happy to do so, or just to discuss. I'm very willing and very open to bluntly and cordially discuss what's going on. I think my biggest thing I would recommend is just be authentic to yourself going through this process. I know we all wear the military mask of the officer, that I'm the consummate professional, but when you're going into these interviews and going through the conferences, going into the round two, you really just have to kind of take that off and expose yourself, be vulnerable to who you are and what you're looking for in a professional and approachable way, and make sure that you're finding the right fit, because just as much as you want to find the job that's going to be satisfying to you and the company that you're going to be passionate about, they want their leaders that they're hiring here to be passionate and to be a good fit. So don't let selling yourself make you lose sight of being authentically you. And when that comes through in your interviews, you're going to get yes. I mean, unless it is the wrong job. And then it's a good no. So just be yourself, take a deep breath, relax yourself through it, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, so good. I love it. Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Cody. Ian, over to you.
Yeah, again, treat this as one of the most important decisions that you're going to make, period. And give it the attention it deserves. Use all the resources at your disposal as best you can. And if you do that, when you show up for the conference, it's going to be fun. You're going to be so well armed, and it will be so evident that you have done your homework and you are prepared. You're going to just glow, like you're going to radiate preparation, and that will have an effect that's just helpful in itself. So strongly recommend that. Treat this seriously, and then it will be a good time. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you guys so much. You two are well on your way, and definitely proof of that. Just like being genuine, authentic, glowing. I could hear you. I mean, Ian talking about DNA, and in manufacturing and all this. It's crazy, to hear, and it's just so rewarding, especially for me. It gives me a lot of fulfillment. And so thank you guys for attending. I really, really appreciate that. But that concludes the November conference review. I really look forward to talking with you both and for getting this live for all those out there. So without further ado, make it a great day.
Thanks for having us, Brock.
Thanks, Cody. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you so much for listening to the PCS to Corporate America podcast by Cameron Brooks. Stay tuned for our next episode, where Chuck Alvarez, our CEO, and Joel Junker, our Senior Vice President, are going to be speaking about the economy, about how to prepare for 2026, and wish a little happy holidays too.